you know. So tonight we're gonna give you an opportunity to introduce both the three of you. So we're gonna start what I came from, ladies first. So Miss Katherine Waldron, please go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight. We've got about 8 more days here before the election. And so I just, I'm glad to be here, given the opportunity to talk to you guys. A little bit about my background. My name's Katherine Waldron. I was born and raised in the DC area. I went to University of Virginia, got my bachelor's there. And more recently, I got my master's from Palm Beach Atlantic University. I moved down here about over 20 years ago, and like most of you, fell in love with the community, the county, South Florida. It's great. I'm a mother of 3 adult children, and more recently, I've become a grandmother to a 18-month-old granddaughter. So that's been exciting. I have a business background. I worked in the Fortune 50 companies for many years as an executive, first at Nortel and then later at Sprint. I'm currently in my second term as a port commissioner, and I've always been passionate about giving back to the community. So one of the reasons I ran for office at port commissioner is because it's a business. It's a big economic engine for our county. And with my business background, I thought that would be a good mix. I also ran for environmental reasons. 6 years ago, they were going to move forward with a deep dredge in the port, which would have been an environmental disaster. It would have hurt our tourist industry, and it wasn't even needed by any of the tenants. So was the main issue I ran on. And when I got elected, I was able to overturn that vote. Some of the issues I want to focus on when I get to Tallahassee are important issues for everybody. One of them is gun safety. I think we need to have stronger laws, and I think we also need to start implementing the laws we have a little bit more forcefully. Women's rights, and actually just human rights. I think they're being attacked by our governor right now. Various bills that have been put through are doing that. Also, I want to continue to protect the environment and education. You mentioned, Juan, you're the Hispanic community's largest community in the education system. So I think we need to make sure we're focused on bolstering our public education, because that's really one of the things that's made our country great over the past many years. And of course, workforce housing is very critical. I'm on the business development board, and it impacts greatly our ability to bring businesses here. They want to come here, but then they get here and they can't hire or retain people because they can't find a place to afford for their families. So we need to.
Time is up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis?
All right. As I said, my name is Dr. Saulis Banionis, and I'm running for state representative for District 93. I'm a physician. I'm not a politician. I also do have a business degree, but I'm really running for public office to protect my family, my community, and my state. You know, as you could probably tell again by my name, I am a first-generation American. My parents came here to the United States after World War II in 1949. They really sacrificed everything that they had to come here. They gave up everything to really realize the American dream. When they first got off the boat, they landed in New Orleans in 1949, and they actually picked cotton for the first 6 months that they were here. My father couldn't tolerate the humidity. They moved to Pennsylvania. They were able to learn the language, establish themselves, and they ended up having 8 children. I'm the youngest of those 8 children, and my parents really taught us the value of education and hard work. I worked hard. I paid my own way through college. Part of that was by serving in the military. I was an ammunition explosive specialist in the military, and I served in the reserves. And that helped to pay for college along with many part-time jobs. And then later on, I put myself through medical school. So they really taught us the value of hard work, education, and the importance of protecting America. So that's why I'm running for public office. One of the big things that I'm planning on doing as soon as I get to Tallahassee is providing relief, immediate relief for families and small businesses. And this can really be done through tax reform and tax relief, particularly property taxes can be reduced and provide immediate impact and money back in the pockets of families, as well as provide a boost to small businesses. You know, a lot of times, many people right now, they can't afford their groceries with the recession and inflation and prices going up. They have to choose between their groceries, medication, and fuel. You know, are they going to be able to fill up their car to make it to their job or buy food for their family? So with all of these stressors on families, we need to provide some immediate relief for both families as well as small businesses, because small businesses are the backbone of our country. Also, insurance reform, as well as tort reform. So by providing those things, this will help both families as well as small businesses. Another huge component that I want to focus on is reforming education and parental rights. Parents have to be able to direct the education of their children and protect children from, frankly, some of these crazy policies that are being pushed. We also need to support and protect the most vulnerable. We need to protect seniors as well as children. I know that we have an upcoming soccer match that's going to be happening, and that soccer match during these events are some of the largest events for trafficking in children. And then we can't let anything that happened during COVID, where people died alone because they were scared to lose their housing if they went to see their family in assisted living. So these are some of the main policies that I'm going to be pushing and supporting to really protect families and small businesses in our community.
Thank you. Tom? Unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, well, thank you for having me here. My name is Tom Valeo, and I got my start right here in Palm Beach County, but the journey that brought me to this forum and other forums like it is one that I never really expected. You see, growing up, I wanted to be a professional musician. That was my dream. And when I was 18 years old, I had the opportunity to perform at Carnegie Hall in New York City. So I thought I was on my way to that dream. And as I was living my dream, though, my father was faced with a nightmare. You go to New York City to see your son perform, his boss told him, and you won't have a job when you come home on Monday. Well, long story short is my father didn't have a job when he came home on Monday. You see, neither of my parents had ever attended college. Until that night in New York City, I never thought I would either. My parents charted their way into the middle class by following 3 simple rules. It was you work hard, you do all the good for as many people as you can, and you never give up. So following these steps, I became the first member of my family to graduate from college. And after I received a 4-year degree, I gave back to my community the only way that I knew how, and that was through public service. You see, I never thought I would step foot on a university campus, let alone have a job in and someday run for office in the legislature of the 3rd most populous state in our union. But working in the legislature the last 6 years, I learned firsthand how the legislative process works, which is why I was an instrumental part of a team that has passed nearly 20 pieces of legislation that have been signed into law by governors, and I've gotten millions of dollars, nearly 50 million, into the budget from Palm Beach County. The truth is, on day one, I can get to work. But throughout the last few months of this campaign, I've learned that Floridians have more that unites us than that most folks would like to admit. There's more that unites us than that divides us. We all want to afford a home that we can raise our families in. We all want equal access to healthcare. We all want our children to have equal access to a good education, and we all just want to feel safe in our neighborhoods. But the truth is that the pathways to Florida's middle class have gotten a lot smaller and narrower. Today, it's impossible for a first-time homeowner to buy a home. Current homeowners are struggling to keep a roof over their heads, and families just can't afford to pay for their healthcare coverage. You see, I understand what's broken, I understand how to fix it, and I'm going to lead the fight on day one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mirta Luasa, she's the chief editor of La Guia News in Palm Beach County, and it's the largest Spanish only circulation newspaper in the county, both printed and digital, for the whole county. So Ms. Luaces, you have a question, please.
Thank you and good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. And my question is for all of you. Do you know how many Hispanics are in your district and why they should vote for you?
Let's start from Tom. Now, right to left.
Sure. I'm going to be quite frank, and I say this to everyone. I'm never going to pretend to know what I do not know. You want an exact number, percentage of Hispanics that are living in the district? I couldn't give that to you right off the bat. I do know it has changed because this used to be District 86, and we took in a big portion of what is now Green Acres, and our Hispanic population in the district has grown. But the second half of that question was, why should they vote for our campaign? And I'll give you a couple reasons. I think one is because I recognize that for our Hispanic community, we have to provide political and economic empowerment. We have to get them involved in the political process. I've done that. I'm the president of the Palm Beach County Young Democrats, so I've worked with our Hispanic caucuses to increase voter turnout and to get more folks out there. I will commit, because we have a larger Hispanic population, that once we win this race, I will commit right now that we will have a Spanish speaker working in our office full-time that can communicate to those portions of the district. But another reason I think that they should vote for our race is because I'm on the ground. I just spent the last week working in a classroom with a Spanish teacher, Senora Jimenez at Wellington High School. And I learned that we have elementary school students whose parents do not speak English. English is not their first language. Spanish is their first language, and they may not know the grammar that comes with Spanish. And we are trying to teach them English. These kids are still learning their first language, Spanish. And so we are not doing our children a service when we are throwing them into a situation where they're learning two languages, the grammar and everything simultaneously. And it's aware on the teachers. She expressed to me just today how this has been a heart-wrenching experience, and it's one of the things that is pushing her out of the teaching education. So I'm on the ground working with these folks, and I will continue to use my voice to the best of my ability to bring their stories up to Tallahassee, because the truth is, a lot of this state doesn't have large Spanish-speaking populations like we do in South Florida. So other representatives, these folks that I've built relationships with, they just don't know the story, and I'm willing to bring that story up to them.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis?
Yeah, so actually, I did have this information. I just had to briefly look at it. There's roughly about 22,000 Hispanics that are currently in District 93. The reason that they actually should vote for me is because I can actually relate to this community. As a result of my parents and the upbringing and the things that they went through, my parents drilled into us the concerns about socialism and communism when I was growing up. So I can directly relate to these folks because they actually, many of these people escaped totalitarian governments and to seek that freedom that my same parents sought. So I understand many of the same struggles that not only that they are going through, but oftentimes their children are going through. So that's really the reason to vote for me. I'm not a politician, I'm a physician. I'm also a small business owner in the community. So the reason that the Hispanic community should vote for me and my platform is because I'm just trying to bring common sense, the things that these families grew up with. That's what I'm trying to bring back to government. Again, I'm not a politician, but we need to bring back everyday people into the political system to take our government back from professional politicians. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Waldron?
Yes, thank you. So the fastest growing segment of our population here is the Hispanic community. And, you know, to the earlier point, there's 22,000 Hispanics in our district. I think when as a candidate, we always look to I'm a Democrat, so we're looking for Democratic voters. I can tell you that we've reached out to, my campaign has reached out to over 2,000, warm Democratic voters and talked to them about what their concerns are. And the concerns are education, of course, and security, jobs, particularly job security. A lot of the people who have migrated here came from, for example, Puerto Rico, and they weren't necessarily escaping a bad political situation, but they were they had to leave because of Hurricane Maria, which, as you know, Juan, we worked on to help that, Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands after Hurricane Maria, but still people needed to come over here. So, and it's always tough to move and to have to learn a new way of life, a new language. So Puerto Rico, Cuban, Mexican, and a lot of more and more South Americans are coming up here too. And they shouldn't all be grouped into one group because they're all different concerns, and they're coming from different countries, so they have different outlook on life, and so we have to take that into account, the diversity of the Hispanic community, and I think that's very important. But basically, they, more than a lot of people, they are a minority group, and to a certain extent they're marginalized, and we need to focus on them. So we need to make sure that they are safe, and that their children are getting a good education, and they have access to good jobs. And I think that's something we really need to focus on as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan, is it Jonathan Robles?
Hi, how are you? Thank you guys for joining us this evening. My question to you is, in today's evolving world of technology, I know the rest of you guys know I love technology. How do you feel about technology in the court system, and do you support it?
Ms. Waldron, let's start again.
Wait, what technology in the court system? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you
Or just
give me a
just
little-
in general? I mean, because you know how everything is evolving as far as cell phones, computer systems, and I know some places take longer to adapt in today's age. Like the school system and things like that. So, how do you feel as far as we're adapting to that?
adapting to technology? Well, I do think that it's a double-edged sword, right? So on the one hand, it allows us to communicate, amongst family and friends at great, that are a lot of distances. We have, my family has a Zoom call every weekend, so there's 4 generations on the call. But then there's the privacy concerns, and everybody knows that Amazon and Google and Facebook have these algorithms, and they can track pretty much everything you're doing. And that's a little bit scary. And it's even more scary when you have a situation like Roe versus Wade that was just overturned. And, some of these states are putting vigilante laws in place. And so now you can kind of track people's, purchases. So you can maybe discern from that whether or not they're pregnant or not. So I think we need to be very careful about the privacy issues that come with increased technology. That's one thing that concerns me a lot. And I think that people kind of know that they're being tracked, but they don't really see it as much as it is, but it's out there, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, I was talking to my son about him ordering some blinds, and by the time I got off the phone, I was getting emails for blinds on sale. So I think it's something that we need to monitor and figure out how do we get our arms around it.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis?
So the concerns about technology, specifically privacy concerns, but also something artificial intelligence that's been making a bigger move and has been advancing, from what I understand, leaps and bounds. I have significant concerns about that. There was a video out, I believe it was on YouTube, where there was a computer or a robot, I guess, that was actually learning and playing chess with a young individual, and he learned his particular moves. And during one of the matches, he knew that he was going to move his one of his pieces, and he reached forward and actually broke his finger. So as far as technology goes, I think that we have to have significant legislation to make sure that technology is controlled to provide the betterment for society, rather than allowing it to run freely and somewhat rampantly. I know that, for instance, Google and many of the social media companies had a lot of leeway as they were getting started up. But I was actually censored 3 years ago as a physician by Twitter for simply stating that XX is female and XY is male, regardless of how many pieces you want to put on or take off. That's the reality of it. You can't change the DNA of somebody, and those things will not be changed regardless. So as far as technology goes, me as a physician not being able to make that statement and to actually be removed from social media as a direct result of that statement, which was actually, it's a true statement. I think that when we put individuals that have particular agendas, we have to be very careful to make sure that those people are also that they have rules that they need to follow, and that those rules are followed. As far as technology, I think that we have to have legislation in place that makes sure that that technology is used for the betterment of society, not for an individual company at the expense of people's privacy.
Thank you. Mr. Valeo?
Well, thank you. This is a big one to unpack. Technology is extremely beneficial. Look at us all right now, sitting from the comfort of our homes or our offices in different parts of the county, having a good conversation. It can bring people together. I've worked in Tallahassee where folks that weren't able to drive 7 hours were able to give our office a call and get a meeting in minutes because of technology and Zoom calls and the like. I think it's incredible. But there are many, many things that we need to be careful with technology. You've heard data privacy is a big one on this call. Clearly, we had some legislation in Tallahassee that had to do with even the DNA samples that you give to like Ancestry.com and the type of data and DNA and personal information that is now stored somewhere, God knows where, and the protections that we have for that. I think there's First Amendment protections, and we have to understand where your right to free speech begins and ends. If I tweet something from work, am I now subject to breaking some type of law because I'm using my ability of free speech on a public school campus or in the legislature, for example? And with that, we also have to protect businesses and understand that there are certain businesses that, yes, this is the free speech in the business thing is a big balancing act that we're going to have for generations. You heard earlier an example about Twitter. Well, Twitter's a private business, and Twitter can say who gets to say what and what not on their platform, or are they the public square? Into which case, free speech reigns and the First Amendment protects unpopular speech, whether we like what it says or not. So I think technology has so many benefits, but we're going to have to balance it with these traditional principles that we've come to know, things like the First Amendment and data collection and that sort. So it's a big piece to unpack, and I'm sure that legislation in 50 states and in the Washington, D.C. is going to be looking at it. SCOTUS has hearings about it regularly. So it's going to be the big topic, the next generation, for sure.
Thank you very much. The next question I'm going to ask, because it was a big decision that the Supreme Court took not too long ago, Roe versus Wade. Obviously, we understand that was a right of every woman in this country, and the decision by the court, obviously, is going to push some women to go out of the country and risk their lives, under a medical condition that might not be the best for them, And there's some states that already took steps to make it viable in their own state. So what is your position about that? I would like to start with Ms. Waldron.
Yeah, this is a very big issue for me for many reasons. But look, we're about the only developed country in the world that has these onerous problems, onerous restrictions on abortion, and the trigger laws that are being implemented as a result of the Roe versus Wade and the 20+ states are creating, in many instances, a situation where a zygote has more rights than a woman does. And you've also created a situation where you have a vigilante system where people are getting paid to basically, track down people that might be having an abortion. And you also are putting the woman in danger if you basically say, under no circumstances can you have an abortion. So forced pregnancy, we all know about the 10-year-old girl that was in Indiana that had to leave the state to get an abortion. Under, a 10-year-old, 13-year-old should not be forced, to term. Study it, and it's not just the psychological and the physical implications, but study after study have shown that if you allow a woman to have an abortion when she's not financially or emotionally able to, she can go on to have a high quality of life. But if you force her to go to terms, then she ends up in a much worse situation for the rest of her life. And I don't think that that should be happening. And the idea that we're giving it to the states so let the states decide is just false, because the next day Mitch McConnell clearly came out and said that if the Senate and the House go Republican, the first thing he's going to do is outlaw abortions of all kinds. So it's a really bad situation. It needs to be fixed, and I will fight very hard to undo what DeSantis has done in terms of 15-week abortion and what he's threatening to do now.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis.
So in terms of abortion, I am a Christian, and for me and my family, I don't support it. I don't support abortion, but I will respect the rule of law, but I do feel that there's also exceptions that you have to understand, specifically when it comes to rape, incest, or the health of the mother. That being said, I think that the state could actually provide additional resources for those families that decide to go ahead and have those children. I know in New York, they have a state law, taking somebody's license or putting them in jail when they're not supporting their family isn't the right way to go. In New York, they'll do a garnishment of wages. And I think here in Florida, we can also provide that sort of legislature for a young mother that decides to have her baby and not proceed with an abortion. I think that we need to provide more support structures and have a fund available for those individuals that choose to have those babies and to have those children. So again, for me and my family, I do not support it. I strongly believe in the family, but I will respect the rule of law that does exist in our state.
Thank you. Mr. Valeo.
I think it's simple. I support a woman's right to choose. I think abortion is healthcare. And listen, this is coming from a man that grew up in a Catholic home and worked at a Catholic church for 10 years. I'm going to tell you the one thing I can't stand is this conversation of pro-life versus pro-choice. If you're not pro-life, then what does that make you? Pro-death? I hate how this argument is boiled down to these talking points, because it is so much more complex than that. The conversation of Roe v. Wade being overturned. Well, listen, abortion rights aren't the only things on the chopping block when you start eliminating privacy rights protected under the 14th Amendment. We're talking about who you can then marry, not just same-sex couples, but interracial couples. We're talking about your ability to use contraception in the bedroom in the privacy of your own bedroom with your spouse or whomever. So that's a serious problem, and it's a Pandora's box, and I'm afraid we're not going to be able to close too soon. I was in Tallahassee when they were pushing some of these extreme abortion bans. I love to hear that we want exceptions under certain circumstances, but that's not what the mainstream I hate to be political, the mainstream Republican Party wants, because I helped write the amendment that would have provided a exception for rape and incest in the most recent 15-week abortion ban that the legislature passed. That was too extreme for them. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to have that conversation. Then the Texas law. Let's talk about the Texas law for a second. The Texas law allowed individual citizens to essentially be the cops on the beat. If I didn't like that Susie was getting an abortion, I could report her. And that was a terrible precedent that we were setting on a state level, because that's separating the executive branch from its exact job, which is the enforcement of laws. You're handing that over to the citizens. And so, we're going down a slippery slope here by eliminating Roe and attacking abortion rights. At the end of the day, listen, you want to prevent abortion, provide more sex education, provide contraceptions to people. But we should not be eliminating a woman's right to choose to try and score political points.
Thank you. Mr. Valentín, tienes una pregunta que quieres hacer.
Sí, dile a ellos que nosotros como pastores y ministros visitamos mucho la Cámara para defender proyectos pro la familia. De ellos ser congresista o ser representante del distrito. Cuando nosotros vayamos a defender proyectos de la familia allá, ¿cómo ellos nos van a recibir?
Pastor Valentin, he represents, there's an organization of Hispanic pastors in Palm Beach County, over 500 churches between Lantana Road and Jupiter. Some of the churches, you got 50 members. Some of the churches got 3,000 or 4,000, whatever it might be, that number. But they have a presence. But one of the things that they do when Tallahassee is in session, they do go up there to present the needs of the members of the church as they go up there. So his question is, when they go up there, what is going to be your position if you were the elected legislator? Ms. Waldron?
What is going to be what is the position if they come up to talk about?
What is going to be they're going to be talking about the needs that they have, because obviously, yes, some of the members of the church, they might be documented. Some of the members might not be, and then we go back to an old say here in this country that always everybody says, well, one size fits all. That is wrong. That's totally wrong. And the Hispanic, that's why we have 21 countries who are residents of Palm Beach County. And each one of them is a different culture, it's a different people, they are not the same. And even though, some of them still do not speak English, so what? Because how many of you speak Spanish? Exactly. So the whole thing is about, okay, yeah, years ago when I was a member of the Air Force, I was a military guy, I was a member of the Air Force. Yeah, if I didn't speak English, I would have been killed. That changed. I was stationed at Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia. And I know what discrimination and prejudice looks like, and I felt it. But again, it's about, so the pastor here is asking, okay, when I go to present my needs over there, what kind of reception can I expect from you guys without being totally political? Because I know politics come into play, but how are we going to deal with it? So let's start with Tom.
So you will always get a warm reception from me, because I think that if you came up to Tallahassee, you're doing exactly what is right. Juan, you made a point that they may not speak English. So what? My great grandmother never spoke a lick of English. All she learned was how to write her name so she could sign her citizenship papers. They came over here from Naples, Italy. My grandfather, who was born in Italy, it wasn't, and he served in World War II. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge. This man was an American hero. When he was dying in his late 80s, we couldn't find his paperwork to prove he was a citizen. This man lived here his entire life. So you will always receive a warm reception from me to share your stories, to tell me what you are dealing with, what your communities are dealing with. And let me tell you something, it's not just going to be when you come up to Tallahassee. I will have an open door policy 150% of the time. I will make sure you have my phone number before we hang up from this call right now, because I want to visit your church. I want to sit in the congregation and listen to the music and pray with you, because I think that's exactly how we bring our communities together. And if we don't speak the same language, we're still Americans, we are still humans, we are still Floridians that are feeling and dealing with the same thing. So I am hoping that I'm answering the question correctly, but the answer is you will always be welcome to me with open arms.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis?
Yeah, so, you know, I had mentioned that I am a Christian. So obviously, when a pastor or really anybody comes to me, I ask for a blessing from the Holy Spirit to give me guidance and insight into it, to be honest with you. What sort of reception is he going to receive? He's going to receive an open arms reception of what would he like to discuss? What does he want to go over? And we'll have to tackle these battles one at a time. As you mentioned, these are individuals from at least 21 different countries, and every one of them is unique. And we'll have to tackle those battles individually, one at a time, because you're right. There isn't one size fits all. And I know that there's been a push by the Democrat Party to group people as Latinx. No, every country is individual. They have their own culture. They have their own customs. And as the pastor comes up there, he's going to have, 3 problems, 1 problem, 10 problems. We're going to tackle them all one at a time, because again, I am part of this community, and he and his family that he has in his church is part of this community. That's why I want to go to Tallahassee, is to fight to save my family and my community and bring common sense back to it, because frankly, some of this stuff is getting crazy. So we need everyday people to get back into politics, to take our country back, to bring common sense back.
Thank you. Ms. Waldron?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on that a little bit when we talked about the percentage of Hispanics in our district, that there's people need to understand that it's a diverse group, and they're from different countries. And so, were you to come to Tallahassee, I think I would like to not just have me understand it, but get you in front of other influencers in this state so that they can understand, because I do think that is a problem. The Hispanic community kind of gets clumped together, and there's so many different needs depending on where they're coming from and the reasons that they came here. And I think that getting you in front of influencers and decision makers in Tallahassee, and getting them to understand the diversity that you have in your community would be very helpful to you, to your group, and to actually all the Hispanics and non-Hispanics in our state. I think the more we understand each other, the better we are. So I would like to work with you to help lead that effort, so that people understand that it shouldn't be grouped. I also say that, as you know, I have always tried to be there for groups when they're in need, which is why I co-founded Palm Beach County Cares to help with Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Bahamas and Haiti. And I think that seeing the outpouring of our community, of our county, and how many people came together to help after these hurricanes, it was very heartwarming. So people want to help. It's just a question of showing them how. And so I think that's important too.
Thank you very much. I would like to give you a minute on each one of them to tell what should we remember from you tonight. So let's just start with Mr. Valeo. Go ahead.
So these are closing statements, correct?
Closing statement, yes.
Okay, well, listen, folks, thank you for having us. I think everyone knows that our state is going through some tough times right now. And I think Tallahassee's unwillingness to tackle tough problems for decades is making it impossible for working class people like you and I to feel safe in the state of Florida. But the biggest risk we can take right now is sending up inexperience to Tallahassee. We need fundamental change in the state, and that's exactly what I plan on bringing. Listen, through the short few months of this campaign, many in our communities have taken the time to share their stories with me and have confirmed once again the fundamental decency and generosity of Florida's people. So I'm sure that our brightest days are still ahead, but we have to invest in Floridians again. We have to expand healthcare to more Floridians. We have to make sure our schools are fully equipped to help students, teachers, and staff. We have to invest in businesses that create a new energy economy of the future and in policies that will lift wages and grow our middle class. You see, these are policies that I've worked for all of my professional life. It's my first time on a ballot. I'm not a politician, but I have worked in government, which is why so many of our Democratic lawmakers have endorsed our campaign. Folks like Senator Bobby Powell and Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith and Representatives Grieco and Learned, and so many organizations like the Florida Medical Association and the Democratic Black Caucus and the Palm Beach Post. But let me tell you folks, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick, and it's going to require all of us to come together and renew a spirit of service and sacrifice and responsibility. But I'm absolutely sure that we can do it. And I ask for your vote.
Thank you.
Promise, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Banionis?
Yes, thank you. It's interesting what Tom just mentioned. He said that, sending inexperience up there. I agree. This young man, unfortunately, hasn't had much experience outside of being in the political system. He graduated from college and he went right into politics. And unfortunately, that's not real life experience that many people in our community actually have to deal with. As I said, I paid my own way through college and I paid my own way through medical school. I served in the community and I started my own business. So I know exactly what our community is going through and what our community needs. But as I was at a recent meeting, this was about 3 months ago, and there was a local Democrat leader who described himself as a triple minority. And I thought how sad that was. We don't need to be dividing people apart. We need to bring people together. We all come from various countries. Either we did, our parents did, or our grandparents did. And we need to bring people together. We are one nation under God. And these are uncommon times. And I'm running to bring common sense back to government. We need everyday citizens to step up and get rid of these professional politicians where they talk a lot, but they actually do very little. And as I said earlier, I'm running to protect my family, my community, and my state, and to honor the sacrifices that my parents made to start a new life here in America. That's why I'm doing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Waldron?
Yeah, so we have to get away from the culture wars that DeSantis has kind of instigated up there and get back to really focusing on what Florida needs. And basically, our state is more divided now because of what the Republican Party has been doing up in Tallahassee. So it's nice to say we shouldn't be divided, but we should recognize where it's coming from. And the fact of the matter is that I'm the only elected official running right now running in this race. I'm in my second term, and experience does matter. Experience helps, so you understand the process. And I have a very large base of support from a lot of groups: SEIU, Ruthless Now, HRC, Florida College Dems, as well as Congresswoman Frankel and Gannon, and over a dozen current and former mayors and a dozen legislatures. And so I have a very big base, but more importantly, as I've been out there talking to everybody, I'm trying to understand and get more information and understand everybody's needs and what they're worried about. And right now, a lot of people are worried about the state of our democracy and what's happening when you have a situation like Roe versus Wade being overturned and some of the things that the Republicans in DC are trying to do. It's very concerning to people. And I want to fight against that in Tallahassee. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having all of you here tonight. We'd like to thank you for your participation. We want to wish you the best, and like they said in that good old movie, may the force be with you, and
Thank
wish you the
you.
best. Stay
Thank you
well.
Very much.
Good luck. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Good night.